Okay, let's just jump right in. When you think about the big foundational ideas of Western culture, God, the devil, heaven and hell, that kind of thing, you almost always point to Judaism or Christianity.
That's the default, yeah.
But what if I told you the blueprint, the real philosophical DNA for all of that, actually comes from somewhere else, from an ancient and pretty overlooked Iranian religion?
And that's exactly what we're going to get into today. We're tracing the incredible, pervasive legacy of Zoroastrianism. I mean, this was once the state religion of a massive empire.
And now it's a faith with, what, a couple 100,000 followers?
If that. But you're about to see just how much of what we consider our culture, our moral framework, might actually have Iranian roots.
Yeah, and the influence is just staggering. We're talking about figures like Voltaire, Mozart, the rock legend Freddie Mercury. It's the philosophical backbone for huge cultural moments. From 2001, A Space Odyssey, to, believe it or not, Star Wars.
To really get it, we have to start with the prophet, Zarathustra, or, Zoroaster, as the Greeks called him.
Right, and just pinning down when he lived is a challenge in itself, isn't it?
It's a huge academic debate. Some sources put him way, way back, maybe between 1500 and 1000 BC, just incredibly ancient.
So potentially centuries before the major Jewish prophets. But I see some scholars push him way forward.
They do. Some suggest he was a contemporary of the Persian emperors Cyrus the Great and Darius I, so that's the 6th century BC.
That's a 1,000-year difference.
It's a massive gap, but the consensus, mostly from linguistic analysis of his hymns, the Gathas, leans toward that earlier date. The language seems to be from the Bronze Age, and if he is that old, what he did was just revolutionary.
Okay, so what was the world like before him, religiously speaking, in that region?
It was a polytheistic system. The old Irano-Aryan religion had a whole pantheon of deities, sort of like the early Indian Vedic tradition.
And Zarathustra came along and said,
he condemned it, flat out. He preached that there was only one God that should be worshipped, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Wisdom.
So he's not just adding a new god to the list.
Not at all. He's clearing the board. Many scholars argue this is mankind's first real formulated monotheistic faith. It's a total shift in how you see the divine.
But then you have the classic problem, right? If there's one all-powerful good God, how do you explain evil? How do you explain suffering and chaos?
And that's where the structure starts to look very, very familiar to us. He introduces this concept of dualism.
Right.
The entire universe is defined by this cosmic struggle between two coexisting forces. On one side, you have Ahura Mazda, God, who represents light, order, goodness.
And on the other,
Ahriman, the destructive force, darkness, chaos, and evil, a constant cosmic war.
So it's not just a battle happening up in the heavens somewhere. Where do we fit in?
That's the most fascinating part. It introduces radical human agency. The battle plays out inside every single person. In your thoughts, your words, your actions.
Which is so different from, say, Greek mythology, where you're just a pawn of these moody, whimsical gods.
Exactly. Fatalism goes out the window. Zoroastrianism insists that you personally have to choose. Are you on the side of truth or the side of the lie?
So your moral choices actually matter on a cosmic scale. You're a soldier in this war between light and dark.
You've hit the nail on the head. You are responsible for your own salvation through good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. And that idea that moral free will is one of the first and most powerful concepts to leak out into other faiths.
Let's follow that leak then. Let's trace these ideas into Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Because the sources show the blueprints are all here.
They really are, especially when you look at eschatology, the study of the end times, the idea of heaven and hell, a final judgment day, the purification of the world. That's all from this Iranian tradition.
And the whole structure of angels serving God and demons serving this dark force.
Fundamentally Zoroastrian. And that leads to the big one. The concept of a single, powerful, evil entity whose entire purpose is to oppose God.
So Satan, the devil, that character is basically an adaptation of Ahriman.
Yes. It's a borrowed concept. It's an intellectual shortcut that lets you explain evil without tarnishing the purity of your one good God. It's a massive piece of the puzzle for understanding Western moral philosophy.
But there's a little twist in the ending, right? It's not an eternal stalemate.
That's right. While there's a concept of a fiery hell, the teaching is that Ahura Mazda, the good God, will ultimately win. Everyone, even those condemned for a time, is eventually purified and gets to enjoy paradise.
And the word paradise itself
is Old Persian. Paradise. It means a walled garden.
Wow. Okay, so how did these ideas physically get from ancient Iran into, say, the Jewish faith, which becomes the bridge to the West.
Geopolitics, really. It happens during the Babylonian connection. The Jewish people are in exile in Babylon, and their theology is more or less henotheistic. They worship Yahweh, but don't necessarily deny other gods exist.
And then in 539 BC, the Persian emperor Cyrus the Great shows up.
A Zoroastrian emperor. He liberates them. And for decades, the Jewish intellectual elite are directly exposed to this very sophisticated, state-sponsored dualism.
And their thinking changes.
It changes profoundly. Scholars note that when they return, you start to see angels and demons become much more prominent in their theology, and you see the development of that dedicated adversary, Satan, to explain evil.
It makes perfect sense. But it wasn't just a religious influence, it was philosophical for the Greeks too.
Oh, absolutely. As the Persian Empire expanded into Greek lands, Hellenic thought ran right into this Iranian system. Before that, Greek religion, from Homer, often showed humans as being at the mercy of fickle gods.
You are a subject of divine whims, not an agent of your own morality.
Precisely. After this exposure, you see Greek philosophy begin to prioritize human agency. The sources suggest they started to feel more like masters of their destinies. Your personal choices suddenly had real cosmic weight.
And this idea of a journey through the afterlife, it even shows up centuries later. Our sources point to this uncanny similarity between Dante's Divine Comedy and a much older Zoroastrian text.
The Book of Art of Viraf. Its final form is from around the 10th century AD, but the stories are much older. It describes a sage, Viraf, who takes a guided journey to heaven and hell and reports back on the specific punishments for specific sins.
A guided tour of the afterlife.
The parallels with Dante are just striking. It's the same pattern. So by the time we get to the Renaissance in Europe, the figure of Zoroaster himself has become almost a myth.
He's not really seen as a prophet anymore by Christians, is he?
No, not really. He's seen as this ancient master of magic, a great philosopher, an astrologer, a source of hidden wisdom.
Which is why you see him in Raphael's famous painting, The School of Athens.
That's the theory. Many historians believe he's the figure holding a sparkling celestial globe, standing there among all the great Greek thinkers.
The fascination just keeps going. I mean, we have German alchemy texts from the 18th century dedicated to him. But the real obsession comes during the Enlightenment with Voltaire.
Voltaire's interest was profound. He was so taken with Persian wisdom that his friends actually called him Sadi, after a famous Persian poet. For him, ancient Iran was this kind of rational, moral alternative to the Christian dogma he was fighting against.
And that all culminates in his philosophical story, Zadig.
Right, Zadig, or the Book of Fate. The hero is a Persian Zoroastrian trying to find wisdom, and Voltaire uses him to explore these ideas of reason and virtue. It's this idealized vision of Zoroastrian thought.
It's amazing that the name is still around today, with the fashion labels Zadig and Voltaire.
It's a direct line from 18th century philosophy to modern luxury goods. It's wild. And it wasn't just Voltaire. You have Goethe, you have the poet Thomas More. It was a serious intellectual trend.
Okay, so we have philosophy, literature, but this even ends up on the opera stage. We have to talk about Mozart's The Magic Flute.
The Magic Flute is a perfect example. People usually focus on the Freemasonry connections, but the narrative spine, the core conflict, is pure Zoroastrian dualism.
You have the priest, Zarathustra, which sounds a lot like Zoroaster.
Very close, yes. And the whole opera is a struggle between the light and order of Zoroastra's world and the darkness and chaos of the Queen of the Night.
Light versus dark.
And the hero has to go through trials by fire and water, which are direct echoes of Zoroastrian purification rituals, all to prove he's worthy of wisdom and enlightenment.
That's such a clear connection. And moving forward a century, there's probably no piece of classical music more recognizable today than the opening of Richard Strauss's Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
That booming fanfare, I mean, you hear it and you immediately think of Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey.
The dawn of man. It gives this feeling of immense cosmic importance.
And Strauss got his inspiration, of course, from Friedrich Nietzsche's book of the same name, which is about a prophet named Zarathustra.
But this is where it gets really interesting, because Nietzsche's philosophy is actually the opposite of Zoroastrianism.
It's completely antithetical. Nietzsche was an atheist. He used Zarathustra as a character, as a mouthpiece, precisely because he was the one who, in Nietzsche's view, invented the whole moral dualism of good versus evil.
So he uses the inventor of the idea to be the one to declare that idea is now obsolete, that humanity has to move beyond it.
Exactly. It's the ultimate irony. The West takes the name of this great Iranian prophet to announce the death of God and the rejection of the very moral universe that prophet helped create.
And speaking of creators, let's talk about maybe the most famous Zoroastrian of the modern era, Farrokh Bulsara.
Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury, an absolute legend. He was born to Parsi parents and was, by all accounts, intensely proud of his heritage.
Oh, absolutely. He had this famous quote, "I'll always walk around like a Persian popinjay and no one's gonna stop me, honey."
And his sister said that the faith, that core value system of good thoughts, good words, good deeds, gave him the drive to persevere and follow his dreams.
It was a deep part of his identity, connecting this icon of rock and roll directly back to those ancient Iranian roots.
So finally, let's tie this all back to today. Because this dualistic structure is so simple and powerful, it's still the engine for our biggest stories.
It's everywhere. I mean, beyond the Mazda car company being named for Ahura Mazda, look at Game of Thrones. The whole religion of the Lord of Light, with the hero Azor Ahai fighting the darkness, that's inspired by Ahura Mazda.
And the big one, the biggest of them all, Star Wars.
You could argue the entire premise of Star Wars has Zoroastrianism written all over it.
The light side of the Force versus the dark side.
It's a perfect modern retelling, a cosmic battle between good and evil, played out on a galactic scale, with heroes who have to make a choice. It's Ahura Mazda versus Ahriman with lightsabers.
So when you add it all up, from the very concept of the devil, through Dante, Voltaire, Mozart, Freddie Mercury, and all the way to Luke Skywalker, it's just this incredible hidden influence.
It is, from what was arguably the world's first monotheistic religion, a faith that shaped an empire for 1,000 years.
And it leaves you with a really profound thought, I think.
For sure. In a modern world that so often frames Iran and the West as these polar opposites, as fundamentally different civilizations, the forgotten legacy of Zoroastrianism is this powerful reminder
that our roots are more tangled, more shared than we think.
Exactly. It shows how much of the West's foundational thinking on morality, on good and evil, on our place in the cosmos, actually comes from a shared heritage. It shows us how similar we are to them.
A deeply shared past, shaping a present that's so often defined by division. It really makes you wonder, what other core parts of our own culture did we borrow without ever knowing it? Something to chew on.